Hey, folks, welcome back to the Pulse. My name's Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. It is 3:16 Central Texas time, the very minute I was born in Detroit. Folks, welcome back. It is so good to see you. I am very pleased to be here with you because of what has happened over the last 24 hours, and I'm excited to talk about it. I haven't been able to do that in public, and it's been quite some time. And so, thanks for joining. We're going to have some guests come on. We're going to talk about Ophir Crypto. The launch has happened, it is live. And so, excited about this. Why? Number one, I'm excited about it because the timing, right? When you think about helping and serving others by giving, you want to do it where they have the maximum potential benefit from it. And the best time to launch anything is at the bottom. And boy, I'll tell you what, there's no more feeling a bottom than what you're feeling right now. So we're all in this together, and I'm just so glad to see you here. So welcome back. Our guests will be here in about 15 minutes, but let's say hello to you, and then we'll jump into kind of the story of what has happened, where we are, and what it's all about. Why are we doing what we're doing? So, Hex Force One, what's going on? Hey, Matt, good to see you. So excited to get more info on helping people in the Philippines. And you know what? That's what's so cool is the blockchain is such a tool that can help not only a group of people you may focus on, but also anyone around the world with a MetaMask wallet and a couple bucks can be a part of this movement and mission. And so our whole focus, our team's whole focus is to tokenize communities. We got a contract, we got all these things to encourage people to take back their sovereignty, which is their right to transact, to have free speech, free movement, free transactions, freedom of privacy, all of those things. So Hexforce One, thanks so much for being here. Raffoon, no, you're not wrong. You're absolutely right. You got to contact me. So in that scenario, we just have to double check. So if you're somebody who made a gift to GemEffect, and that is the nonprofit organization for the donation phase, and you did not receive an airdrop, we're going to make sure that you do. So no worries. We're here because this is the beginning of something that will be around for as long as the internet and the blockchain's around, folks. This is an immutable contract on the blockchain. No admin keys. It is a finished project. It's awesome. So yeah, check it out, man. My online ghost, what's good, everyone? Great to see you. Extravagant taste. Good afternoon. What new thing did you learn today? Boy, I'll tell you, I learned some stuff. I talked to Steve Staggs today with one of our offline conversations, and boy, we just had an amazing time. David Lee, all the way from Muncie, Indiana, the home of Ball State University. What's going on? Oh, that is fantastic. Good to see you, David Lee. This is the guy who traveled 7.5 hours from southwestern Indiana to come to my dad's funeral. Godfather J6, Robert Keller, what's up? Tin Tops here. Francis Powell, you can tell I'm in a good mood. Hopefully, our first guest, is in a good mood. Maybe we have to cheer him up. What do you think, guys? Let's do that. Sam Kemp, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Katie's in the house. Magnus, let's go. Paul out the 7th. Hello, everyone. Crypto Cat 46, hello. And good afternoon this August afternoon. This was the first time. So the kids went back to school today. And it's the first time, and I cannot remember how many days it hasn't been like 95 when I woke up. So it was actually a little crisp this morning, which is unusual for the 16th of August. And Hexforce One's birthday tomorrow, so make sure you give a shout out to him. Tex Hex in the house. What's up, Tex Hex? Great to have you here. Thanks for being a part, being so supportive of all the folks in this community. Magnus, we need hopium. We're going to give you some hopium. Peso, dude. If nothing else, we'll extend some of my gratitude and excitement and thankfulness to you. Peso, dude, what's going on? Welcome back. David Lee with the love. BTFD, what's going on? You know what? My guest today, you know him and you love him. And you know what? He loves you even if he doesn't say it. Let's say hello to Hex Monkey too. Boom. What's up, Hex Monkey? He's not only the CFO, he's the CEO, the CTO, the CMO, the CIO. He's the mayor of Sassy City, the commander of Couch Cushion Maintenance. In the islands, he's known as King Kamehameha. He's my ace in the hole. He's my Kid Creole. He's my Bob Dole. He's not internationally known, but he's known to rock the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, the gentle ginger giant genius and the professor of potent pontification, ladies and gentlemen, Brandon from Rags to Riches.
What's up, dude?
Dude, I caught your stream last night
Yeah.
when you were talking about Ophir, and I was just like glued. It was
Yeah.
awesome. Thanks for doing that. You were on fire. It was really cool. I just it was exciting to me because we've been through a lot in these last 24 hours.
Yeah. We've been through quite a bit, man. I was just trying to tell the truth about what it is, man, and what it represents.
Yeah.
And because I needed people to get a clear picture about that, because they're going to be curious. So we went over quite a bit of stuff last night.
Yeah, well, thanks for being on here today. This is a stream where I exhale. So just to give you guys a perspective, we got the devs coming in here in a little bit, but I just want to, one, I want to express my gratitude, and Brandon, allow you to do the same. We have an amazing team of people, and you and I kind of lead the charge, but in reality, so much of the real heavy lifting happens behind the scenes with an amazing team. What do you have to say to those folks that have been a part of just supporting Texan, Ophir, us in this whole process?
Yeah. The first thing that I want to point out is, I mean, these people are here because they want to be here, not because they're
Exactly.
paid to be here, not because of anything else. They just choose to be here, and they help out. I think that we've got really, really good people. And here's the neat thing: if you find one or two good people, they attract other good people, and
Yep.
that's just happened time and time again. So we're very, very fortunate. And yes, they have lifted a very heavy burden voluntarily this entire time, especially getting the Ophir folks up to speed on how this works, and they were able to take their experience from the Texan launch and apply it to the Ophir folks. So it's really nice. We're very grateful, and we're very blessed, Matt. I could say that.
Yeah, yeah, and a big shout outs. Shout out to David Lee. He's had a heart for the folks in the Philippines since moment one. And I just want to say a special thank you to David Lee. We've got folks like Hexy Quinn in the house. We got Sam. We've got Immutable. We've got let's go down the list of everybody you can think about. We got Robert. We've got
So yeah, um, obviously Ryan, the dev, Texan OG day one.
yep.
David Lee, Mr. Rafferty, Inalienable, Immutable, Sam I Am, obviously Ray, thank you, KD, awesome. Taryn, outstanding. Quinn, thank you. Facing Reality, boom. Good to go there.
Did you
Godfather,
hold
like
on,
I said. Yeah.
did you say thank you to Hexy Quinn?
No.
Yeah, you did.
No.
No, I caught you.
No, I was just repeating what you said. That didn't come from my heart.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Didn't
Fair
come from
enough.
my heart.
Fair enough.
Forrest. So
Oh man,
all
Forrest.
sorts of folks, man. I mean, just crushing it daily. Helping
Yeah.
out, just spreading the message, spreading the good word.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing about this is the neatest thing I've ever seen. I ran a company where I had to pay people and had employees and everything. And to be a part of a volunteer group like this that's winning together, that to me is one of the coolest things about this is when you're doing something that is immutable on the blockchain, no admin keys, projects like this, it's really the vision and passion that ties into this, because folks are just volunteering their time and they want to be a part of something. And I can think of nothing better than what Ophir represents in the world. And that's what I got from you last night when I was watching your stream.
Yeah, yeah. And this is the biggest thing that I wanted people to take away from this was this is just you set this in motion, and it doesn't stop, right? And this is pretty neat, Matt, because we're giving this community the gift of blockchain. And Matt, you and I we don't run it. We just said, hey, listen, this is a really cool thing. This is a cool thing that you didn't have access to before. Let's give you this, and then you figure it out. And they take it upon themselves to go build a cool thing halfway across the world, completely across the world. In
Yeah.
fact, from where we are,
Pretty much like exactly across the entire planet. Yeah, I mean,
yes,
depending on what shape you think it is.
yeah. So that's the community aspect of this, man. This is a foreign concept to most of crypto right now, but I assure you, I assure you, we kind of touched on this last night, really. The whole stablecoin thing.
Yeah.
I think that this is really the stablecoin, the proliferation of stablecoins moving forward over the next decade are really going to show the power of tokenization of communities.
Yeah.
I really believe that. So I think, Matt, we are ahead of our time, and we're persecuted for it now. But I think that will become a relic of the past.
Yeah. Cartographer, yes, you too, and KD as well. And folks, I'm just so thankful for all those who've contributed in many, many different ways. We've had support from so many people since the very beginning of all this. But the person I really want to really highlight is John, Firestarter 88.
Hmm.
John and I basically struck up a relationship. He reached out to me in DM, and we just started talking about completely other things. And it just became apparent through his passion. And this was during the Charlie 19, really his passion for the people in these grassroots churches. It's been well over a year now that we've been talking about and working towards this. And the things that he's done, and you pointed this out last night really, really well. John is the founder of Ophir. And what we do as a group, so Brandon and I and Ray and Ryan, this core group of folks that are, leading the charge here, you know, we want to see people win, and we want to contribute our contract, our energy, and our effort to encouraging people that want to create a future that's more free, it's more sovereign, and it's taking back something that has been, um, rather than us be, controlled by it or enslaved to it. It's extremely empowering in this idea of what the blockchain can do, and it doesn't happen overnight, but it takes people who care about others. And I don't know if you know this, Brandon, but the origin of this whole Ophir name and everything, I know you talked a little bit about it last night. You want to share some of that?
Yeah. So from a biblical standpoint, I guess Ophir is the land in which Solomon held his gold.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the backstory, and I think that's extremely fitting and appropriate for the name of a cryptocurrency. I
Yeah.
think that's really cool.
Yeah, what's neat about too, and for those of you who don't know that story, it's referenced in the Bible several times where, this gold of Ophir, and there's many scholars of today who say the Philippines is the modern day Ophir. So actually the place. And there's even recently in the news, one of the congressmen or somebody that's, within the leadership in the Philippines actually made a case that they should rename the Philippines Ophir,
Oh, neat.
which is really cool. It was called Maharlika prior, and when you think about what the region is like, and what's amazing is how much gold there is in the Philippines, and so it makes a lot of sense that that is that site. But I think one of the deeper pieces that I think John, it really resonated with John and myself, and as we continue to talk about this, is this idea that what is gold, right? Gold to us is, just it's metal, right? You can't eat it. We consider it to be a store of value. We consider it to be money. But in reality, what is gold? Gold ends up becoming a proxy for our labor because there's no value or no wealth that's not based on, human labor, right? That's what this is all about. It's a representation of us, our creative ability, our ability to work, our ability to create. And so to think about this idea that the gold, and what do you think about this? I'm going to get a little philosophical on you. What do you think about this statement that the gold is not in the ground? It's actually in the hearts of men and women across the world.
I think that that's an extremely accurate statement, and it's because gold can only be valuable in its use or its function as created by man.
Yep.
And you can wield gold in any way that you would want to, for good or bad. So ultimately, the gold actually is, from a philosophical standpoint, found in the hearts of men and women all across the world.
And how cool is it that
Yeah.
the blockchain is accessible by anyone with, a wallet and an internet connection and some resources? That to me is so exciting, is that this is not limited by boundaries. And so the idea of Ophir, this mining gold in the hearts of men and women, is that, hey, we built this contract, this endowment contract, to be something that can be something that's outside of censorship, it's outside of government control, where people can come together in community and they can declare their own value.
Mhm.
And that to me is really powerful. But you mentioned last night, and I just want to continue to shout out John. John has been tireless in his advocacy for people who are in remote areas. These are very, very poor people that are organized in churches across the Philippines. Doc Vince, all these folks that are on this team go out to these locations. Doc Vince is a physician, and he does medical missions into very remote places, doing surgeries and all of these things. This is a group of people who wants to serve others, and the mechanism they've chosen is through the local church.
Yeah, yeah, and, what's interesting is everybody has value, okay? And everybody's value is different, and people express that differently. And, I might be comfortable behind the microphone after doing it for 2 or 3 years, whereas somebody else might be comfortable being, like, more face to face with folks and getting out there in front of people. And I think that John does a really, really good job of getting out there in front of people face to face and spreading this message of decentralization. And I really, Matt, I believe I've been researching so much stuff lately that paints a pretty dire picture for the world moving forward from a financial standpoint. And I just don't think we completely understand how important what we're doing right now is and will
Yep.
be in the coming decades.
Yeah, I believe there's a new economic order that people are going to get to the point where they go, this current structure, this framework is going to fail, and that we're going to have alternatives. And to think that we're building these things, and it might be like, oh well, just another token. But when you tie it to the passion in a group of people and the social connections and trust that they have, it can be powerful. But Rags, I
Mhm.
want to bring in the guys who actually did the heavy lifting.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, you know, I I'm excited to get their feedback. I know that they don't like being in the limelight, but I think it's really important to point them out. So let's bring in the devs. Let's bring in ZZ Tesco. What is up, my man? What's
He's
up,
actually a
Ray?
formu
Hello.
he moonlights as a Formula 1 racer as
That's
well.
right. And Ryan. What's up, Ryan?
What's
Brandon,
going
did
on,
you
guys?
know this? Ryan Hungate was one of my first interviews. You and him were about the same, maybe a week or so apart on my channel at the very beginning. And I went back into the analysis. Ryan, your interview is one of the top videos on my entire channel.
Are you kidding me?
No, not kidding you at all.
Oh
It's
my
weird.
gosh.
Maybe
That's so
you're
funny.
people are
Or
secretly.
maybe, Matt, maybe the second video was so low, it made the first video look so hot. Maybe
it,
that's what it
it
was.
must have been that. Welcome, Ray. So Ray and Ryan are senior devs, and they're the ones who, Ray's the guy who wrote the contract with, and Ryan's been a big support. But you guys have worked together. What's it, right, Ray? What's it feel like here, kind of post launch here? Because I've watched you till wee hours in the evening, many days, fretting over this type of launch. Can you tell people what that's like and how you feel?
It's actually nice to see it, to see something that you create out there creating value for people. To finally get to the point where it's running and it's running smoothly, and yeah, so it's nice to we type a bunch of stuff and write a lot of code, and there's a lot of things that I build that no one will ever see. A lot of tools and things like that behind the scenes, but then to put something out there, that uh, can help people and change their future. That's my utility.
Yeah.
It's really doesn't mean a whole lot unless people can engage with it. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
exciting.
and it doesn't happen by accident. And let's give Ryan, I want you to give Ray some credit here. He's never going to toot his own horn ever. But how difficult, as someone who knows development and all of this stuff, what goes into this. What kind of Herculean effort was this for Ray to get this launched?
It's really scary work. You're dealing with finances and really important math. It's there's no room for error when you do these things. Immutable code means you can't change it. So once that thing's pushed up, you're live and you can't really change that anymore. So it's very nerve-wracking, and some days you sit around and it some days it doesn't really hit you, but then some days when you're doing some work, you realize how important that this really is. It's like Ray and I do this every day, and some people are landscapers, some people are construction workers. We're software devs, and so some days you don't really think about how important that this really is. But when you're doing blockchain work, this is the one time when I can say, your heart beats fast. You really look closely at what you're doing, and so yeah, I mean, shout out to Ray. You did a fantastic job on this. It's so it's hard to put it
Well,
into
thanks,
words,
guys.
really, because we do this every day, and there's a piece of me that's like, just another day at work, whatever. But this is so important that when you do it, your heart like stops, your stomach is in knots. And you want to make sure everything that you do is correct. You test it 10 million times before you deploy, and
Yeah.
that's what people don't know. You don't just write it out and deploy. I mean, this is late nights, early mornings, constant testing. It's very difficult work.
Well, even though you guys look so young and handsome and strong, you're not spring chickens in this world. And my understanding too is, and there's a lot of people out there, and we see this in dev work all the time, kind of cut and pasters. Ryan, what's your kind of perspective? Because Ray's skill set, Ray knows your skill set. You've said many times to me that, a lot of what development is at your kind of level and experience is really about solving problems. How would you describe this as it relates to, you know, um, how you guys think about development differently than maybe somebody that's just like, hey, just throw up a contract, man. A lot of that kind of cut and pasting, and they call themselves devs. Help share with people that perspective.
Do people actually do that still?
They do, unfortunately.
No, there's a difference of understanding what you're writing versus taking an example from somebody. Some developers are good enough to, let's say you're a Java developer or you're a PHP developer. You kind of have some experience. You can take a look at an example and think that you know what you're doing. It's very dangerous to just copy and paste and assume that it's going to work. You really have to understand what this code is doing. And Solidity is a very strict language. And I'm telling you guys, it's not easy to do this work at all. There's other forgiving languages. When you're writing in JavaScript, that's all front end, and you make a mistake, no big deal. You fix it, you deploy it, and everybody is happy. But with Solidity, you make a mistake and a lot of bad things can happen.
Yeah. Well, Ray and I have been friends for 22 plus years, and we've been through it all kinds of different adventures. Ray, I think, Ophir and this idea of serving local churches is close to your heart. What, express that for us. I know that, you're always, the code jockey behind, in the closet, but you're rarely up front. How important is this to you to do this kind of work for folks who are serving churches in the Philippines and people who are in poverty?
Well, it's highly important. I mean, a lot of people, and we all need resource, right? And I think, oftentimes, because a lot of people in Christianity get this idea that you have to be humble and you can't have money and you can't have all these things, and there's oftentimes no money to fund whatever you need to get done. So a lot of these churches are, have the heart, where the people have the hearts to just give the shirt off their back to the person next to them, and which is great. And of course, we all know situations where people have taken advantage of others and abused the system. But I'm talking about the people who really are out there. It seems like the people who give the most are the ones who don't have anything,
Yeah.
because they realize it's just not mine to begin with. And so that's it's kind of neat. So to be able to give back to that, and especially to be able to give to a country who have been, I think people have taken a lot from the Philippines and not really given a whole lot back. And so it's exciting to be part of this. And it's exciting to see the churches. The idea of us being able to create endowments where the churches can, work with the interest on a continual basis. I mean, the endowment contract itself is a wonderful thing, but the idea that it can be used this way for reaching people for good is fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks, Ray. That's awesome. Hey, Brandon, he's talking about the endowment contract. And would you kind of, if people understand this narrative and they realize this kind of philanthropic purpose, but also how big the church is, right? And what I mean by that is the universal church in the world. But there's so many people. I mean, you go to remote areas in the Philippines, there's not a post office, there's not a grocery store, but there's a local church, and there's people who want to serve others. What kind of impact would it have if there was adoption in the Philippines for these churches that have these endowments? We've talked about, a dollar goes a long way in the Philippines.
Yeah, you look at Deck Screener right now, and what you see is buys and sells constantly. You see $50 here, you see $100 there. Sometimes you see 500, sometimes you see 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, whatever. So what's the point here? The point is just a small fraction of that. $50 could do absolute wonders for these people. Okay, so one of these churches in one of these villages, $50. What does that do to repair the roof on the church? What does that do to put some type of floor on the ground so they don't have to, be in the dirt while they're on Sundays or whenever they're worshiping? Or just any of these small things. What about the food that $50 could bring to this small village? It's just we take for granted in the West what type of impact that our money has in places like this. This is something that I've talked about before on stream here, but you look at the top 0.1% of earners in the United States make $20 million a year, whereas the top 0.1% of earners in the Philippines make $200,000 a year. That's a massive difference. Okay. And then if you whittle that all the way down to the lowest income earners in the Philippines, like I said, $10, that's incredible. Okay. That does so much for these people. So giving the gift to the blockchain, giving the gift of the blockchain rather, what that does is it makes you borderless. Okay. It makes these people borderless, meaning they don't have to walk here or walk there or do this or do that. If they're taking part in this, then they have access to a global marketplace. And that's what's really, really intriguing. And that's what's fascinating. And, as the Philippines move forward, even into this bull run, like they said, ZZ Tesco said, listen, they've been taken advantage of. Okay. So the Axie Infinity stuff, all sorts of things. You even go back like on Netflix and watch the Pepsi documentary. They've been taken advantage of here. What would it be like for people to stumble upon a contract that doesn't have an OA, that isn't controlled from a centralized entity, and then basically just mints them trustless rewards and trustless yield, and they keep their own keys and they don't have to put their trust in anybody else? That's powerful.
Yep.
Whether or not you guys understand that now, it's extremely powerful, and it can move mountains for these folks.
Well, and you think about it, a lot of the people in our community come through Hex, right? And this idea of, delayed gratification. So people know the gifts of the endowments to these churches, and there's about 5,000 churches in this network. They're going to be receiving an endowment that's pre-staked. Why is that important, Rags? And why is that? How could that be tremendously impactful long term for the churches?
Yeah, because it can be the gift that keeps on giving.
Yep.
And also when it's pre-staked and it's handed over, that's also it should make everybody else who's participating feel more comfortable about all this.
Yeah.
Because it can be verified on the blockchain that these are pre-staked. And if it is early in stake, they lose that. They're not going to want to do that. So this is an ongoing drip that helps sustain these churches in some way over years and years and years and years and years, which is really, really neat.
Yep, absolutely. So Ryan, you were my first friend in Hex. I remember coming into the Hex Telegram chat. I didn't even have a handle. There was no crypto heartbeat. And I went in there asking questions and I got absolutely destroyed. And you were like the only guy who was nice to me. How crazy is it to go from that time to where we are today? Second project launch, tokenizing communities. What's your perspective on all that?
Yeah, it's strange when you really look back at that. I mean, the timing of it all, you were in the chat, I was in the chat. I saw you getting beat up. I was like, yeah, you know what? I need to say something. Just, sometimes you witness these things in the chat rooms and you think, who is in these rooms? Why are they saying what they're saying? I don't know what it is. It's just right place, right time. It's kind of crazy. And I remember you telling me, hey, I'm going to start this
Yeah.
project. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then what was it, 6-7 months later, you're like, I kind of need some help with this project.
You know what's so funny is you told me, I said, hey, I'm thinking about starting a YouTube channel. And you're like, dude, there's way too many YouTube channels out there. I had to show you, Ryan. Had to show you. No, I really appreciate all that you've done. And what's really cool is I remember saying to Ray, I said, hey, Ray, there's this guy, Ryan. He's really cool. And he's a dev, man. I'd love for you to meet him. And Ray was kind of reluctant. He's like, okay, another dev you want me to meet. And you guys have become buds, haven't you, Ray?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. Ryan is so patient with me and answering all my questions.
You have to be in this business. You can't get mad when somebody asks a question. What's wrong with us? Take a step back. It's okay.
And you guys have the perfect combination of skill set, wouldn't you say, Ray? As far as the balance of you two as devs together, complementary.
Yeah, I do. I think it works out really well, actually. And sometimes Ryan bounces ideas off of me. Sometimes I bounce ideas off of him, and we were able to share, our other skill sets together, and really be able to serve you guys and moving this forward. So most people don't know this, and I don't know if I share this on another stream, but Ryan is incredibly strong.
Yes,
so when we talk about Ryan doing heavy lifting, it's not just doing the code.
That's right.
So
if you haven't seen, if you haven't seen Ryan's, every morning you're pretty much documenting your lifting for accountability.
Not every morning, but yeah, I try to do as much as I can.
Well, it's impressive.
So here I am, dev guy behind the computer, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I can lift this. And so Ryan was like, try this. It was like 100 pounds or something, maybe 110. And so I was like, struggling. And then Ryan goes, hey, let me try this. And so he goes under there and with one arm pushes it up without a problem. Like, would I just thought I gonna hernia doing it? No problem for Ryan. So, which is pretty awesome.
I also want to brag about Rags here for a second. When you get into community like this with all the team members and us as kind of leadership, amazing things happen. And of course, I talk about kind of seeing the miraculous all the time. Well, Ray was taking his daughter up to basically an intensive camp up in Maine. And of course, the odd part about this is that's a long way from Central Texas. And what's amazing is on that drive, he and his family were on their way, 35 some hours, and happened to break down 12 minutes from Brandon's house. And Brandon, Ray, do you want to say anything about that? Because that was an amazing thing to me. And of course, Brandon just went out of his way to serve your family. And that's such an amazing story.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was pretty amazing, actually. I felt very thankful to have a friend nearby that I could call and be able to just say, hey, what do we do? The resources around here. He was able to, it was hot. The girls are sweating in the back. They're like, oh, like we've been traveling pretty much for a couple hours at that point. And so Rags, you guys know, he's like the big brother to all of us, and took care of us, drove us around. We went to dinner, lunch together. While the car was getting fixed, he helped me find a place to do that too. He actually bought a battery, and brought it to us. And and these batteries aren't cheap. They're a couple $100 for a battery. Didn't think anything of it. Just did it. And so that was, we had the great opportunity to spend time with his wife and his family and the kids. It was pretty awesome. So really thankful.
Are you okay with that, Brandon?
Yeah, I don't remember most of what he just mentioned, but I'll take it. I mean, it is what it is, guys.
Oh my gosh, it's so great. Well, that's the thing. I always, I always shout out to David Lee, but there's a lot more to this than, just the price chart, especially when the price chart's doing what it's doing. So I'm really thankful for the friendships, but also just these amazing things that happen where you're traveling and you just happen to be in a town where you've got a friend to help you out. So Rags, this is what Rags is always doing behind the scenes, is helping people. You have no idea. But on to the big issue, and I'll let the dev guys go here in a second. But Ryan, tell us about your thoughts on Ophir and tokenizing communities in general, and in the work that we're doing. How do you see it from your perspective?
It's sometimes hard for me to see the big picture. I focus so much on the little stuff all day. I'm always worried about systems and infrastructure and writing the code. And so there's a piece of this where it's like I don't even really see it until I make an effort to step back and look at it from a blimp view. And I'm kind of right at that point now, because once we push the code up, we've got everything live, it's all working. Now it's kind of time for me to absorb all what we've done. It's pretty cool. It's really, really cool. I mean, we have to be forward thinking for the next, 2 to 5 years out. Obviously, it's a brand new project. I think this is really a cool new phase for I don't want to call it a phase, but it's just a really cool thing to focus on. Like, we're all a big family, whether we know it or not. And I think Hex kind of brought us all together. We all learned what we learned for over the last few years, just what Richard Hart taught us. And I can say that we took a piece of that with us, and when we thought about this community-based token, it's exciting to me. But I kind of need time to like step back and absorb it, because when you're in it, when you're digging the ditch, it doesn't really do anything for you until you're done with the job and you're like, hey, I dug the ditch. It's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, well, guys like Rags and me, we're dime a dozen. I mean, guys like you that can actually get the work done and complete it. It can't be done by guys talking. It's got to be guys that really are building and are really conscious of things like security and precision. And so I appreciate that. Ray, I'm going to give you the last word on this segment. What are your thoughts as far as tokenizing communities and this whole thing from your perspective, and why it's important and how it gives hope, I suppose, to so many?
Well, I mean, it's an honor to be here. And again, to see the things that you build be able to really impact the lives of people, that's fantastic. And, we wouldn't even be here, or we would be here, but it would be a lot more difficult, I think, for us had we not had the strong support of the guys that are the Telegram guys, who are really doing the work, the David Lees and the Immutables and Samantha and Quinn and all those guys, just girls too. But really, really taking the initiative to answer all the questions and to field all of those things, and then give us a chance to do the things that we love to do. And it's exciting to see that the things that we love to do builds value for other people. And so yeah, thanks Crypto Heartbeat.
Yeah,
thanks Rags and Ryan, and it's just I'm so thankful for our team.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too.
It's important to. I feel like we're aligning ourselves with the way things are supposed to be, right? It's so oftentimes we see all these things happening in culture that are so upside down and backwards, and to see something where we can say, hey, we're going to make a conscious decision to do it right. And Brandon, that's been really important to you over the, these last couple of years we've known each other, of doing it right and getting it done ahead of time. What are your thoughts about, that perspective and what this team has been able to do and the good people that have come around us?
Yeah, I've seen so many people in my life leading up to this foray to blockchain, in business and in other endeavors, just do things wrong, and they search for the super fast quick wins. And in order to get those quick wins, they have to sacrifice their ethics and morals. And the thing that I like about working with you guys, that's not even it's not even something that pops up in your head. I want to do it the right way. I want to make sure that people are taken care of properly. And because I believe that that's the solid foundation that's going to take you far, 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 far into the future. So, and so that's why I tell people, this is the way that I operate on YouTube. This is the way that I operate on Twitter. I'm not trying to chop people down to get clout. That's not my thing. And that's not your thing, Matt. And it might be really good for engagement. It might be really good to get the word out, but that doesn't make it the right thing to do. And I don't feel comfortable doing it. I'm not going to. and neither are you. So we just stick to the message of positivity. We stick to the message of adding value the best we can, and we have faith. I think that that's going to pay off in the long run for us and everybody involved.
Yep. Well, Ryan, Ray, thank you guys for kind of answering the call to step up and to serve folks in the Philippines, in Texas, and in the next several places that we end up going. We've learned a ton together, and I just am really excited about what the future looks like for the people across the Philippines that are a part of this because of the timing of everything, right? We're before the halvening and things could go up. So, Ryan, Ray, thanks for joining in.
Hey, thank you guys.
All
Talk
right.
to y'all
Thank
soon.
you.
Yeah.
Be good,
Bye.
buddy.
So let's get to the meat and taters of all of this
Mhm.
stuff. So, folks, I wanna say to you, if you want more information about Ophir Crypto, you can go to ophircrypto.com. And Ophir is, our model in tokenizing communities is to bring this endowment contract. We created the first endowment contract on the blockchain, and the premise of that endowment contract is to mirror an actual, essentially financial instrument that's used by nonprofit organizations. And the purpose of an endowment is that a nonprofit organization will use, basically they'll raise money and put it into an account and invest that money, and they will, the goal of that endowment is that it would create interest income that would create sustainability of operations for that nonprofit organization. And so that's what we're mimicking. But we had to have scraping attached to make it an endowment. And so scraping is a function where it has interest, it's yield bearing, and it's a 5% base rate. And the longer that you're willing to stake, the higher it goes. And this is by day, but we look at it from a year's perspective. The maximum stake length is 22 years, and it goes up to 236% in year 22. And so the point of this is, how can you create that sustainability for people, individual people, to have their own endowments, but also for organizations? And in my opinion, if we're going to go the distance and we're going to see crypto be mainstream, it's these tools of trustless yield that are really powerful. Can you speak to that power and any other thoughts you have about the contract and why it's helpful?
Yeah. So the thing that I particularly like about Texan is it's built for the long term. There's a pretty big supply. Most of that supply, vast majority of that supply, is not actually circulating. So that's pretty interesting in and of itself. Only about, let's take Texan or let's take Ophir, for example. 4% of the supply of Ophir was released at launch. Of that 4%, it could be assumed that big portions of that 4% are going to be staked very soon, which then leads us to the next conclusion, which is only probably about 1%, or most likely less than 1% of the entire supply of Ophir is actually going to be circulating. So for the people that are involved right now, you get the advantage of a very, very low supply. And as people come into the system and they stake, you actually have that circulating supply that is moving around currently. When they stake, that circulating supply is removed. So you have a shrinking circulating supply, even though there is a max amount of 100 trillion. The only way to access that 100 trillion is through staking. What do we know about staking behaviors across multiple projects? We know that probably only about 5 to 10% of people actually participate in staking after, maybe a year or two. So that is pretty neat because it causes the supply to actually stay low if there's not many people that are participating in the staking function. For those who do participate, there certainly is outsized benefit to that based on the contract. Has nothing to do with you, has nothing to do with me, has everything to do with the smart contract and the relationship that that person has with the smart contract. So, Matt, one of the interesting things that I foresee here is with people that are staking and with people that are providing liquidity and such, We already have less than 1%. Started at 4%. It's going to start at 4. It'll probably be less than 1% pretty soon here. That is the first example that I've seen where you could actually have a supply crisis in the time of a bull run.
Yep.
If people pick up staking and they're locking this up, there's only so much supply to go around. And there's, I think the average stake length now is about 6.5 years. There's not any more supply that's going to be released other than smaller stakes, and that gets gobbled up quick. So it's just going to be a very, very interesting thing to see this bull run going into the next bull run, going in the next bull run. It all works together to do some pretty cool things.
Yep. And so the whole premise of what we're doing with tokenizing communities is to bring this endowment contract to existing communities. And those existing communities are not in crypto. And of course, these are things that we're investing in the Pulse chain. And so people are going to be onboarded in large numbers into the Pulse chain. And that's important to us because I believe this is going to be ultimately the only layer one of freedom and sovereignty long term. I wanted to point out something here in the contract itself, Brandon, I think is helpful for people to note. Unlike a scenario like Hex, where a T-share value is determined on a daily basis, we decided to literally embed into the contract a table of interest so that, let's say you were to have a long-term stake and you were to, fulfill that time period and the stake to get your principal and interest, back, that it wouldn't take a lot of math, meaning it wouldn't be expensive to do long stakes. And so this is a table that's in the white paper if you want to know what the yield curve is. Unlike other projects which might have an OA that's controlled, there is no OA. There's no admin keys. The only way you can get to the supply that's locked in the contract, and it's in a variable, it's not in a wallet, is only by staking. And so, you look at a lot of tokens where they've got team allocations of 20 to 30 to 40%. Folks, this is less than 1% in team allocation. And the supply has gone to, an organization, a nonprofit organization that serves churches. And so the idea that they would be staking and the supply shock that Brandon's talking about is really to say we're preparing for the long term. And a 22-year stake, length means multi-generationally. But do you want to explain kind of how it's better than compounding interest, and it's been set up so that even if somebody just wanted to utilize it for the 5%, that's kind of the base rate in my experience with all the fundraising work that I've done in nonprofits, that, hey, if we can get 5% on the money, we're happy. This only goes up from there because the base rate is always 5+.
Yeah, I think it's going to help if you go talk to people that might be trying to tokenize a community. It's much easier to say that there's a 5% base rate per year, right?
Yep.
And then you can add in that yearly multiplier. So on this chart, you see that it says 5%. Well, 5% the first year, and then after you serve that full year, you have a multiplier that kicks in, and that will actually give you 6% the next year. So now it's 5% the first year plus 6%, not 5 plus 1, it's 5 plus 6. So in 2 years, you got 11% on your principal there if you stake out max here. And actually, you don't even have to stake out max. It's just, however long you stake, every year you're going to get a multiplier that's baked and cooked into the contract. And you can check those arithmetic tables as well. So if you take, for example, 5 plus 6 plus 8 plus 11 plus 15 year 5, 20 year 6, 26, 33, 41. And then by year 10, you're at 50%. If you add all of those together, you're at 215% that you have based on what the contract is giving you. Now, here's what's interesting. Some people say, 215% in 10 years, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? That doesn't account for actual market price appreciation. So that's what's really, really neat about this too. So you can account for what the contract is actually going to give you. Your relationship with the contract has nothing to do with Matt or I or John or anybody. Additionally, the price appreciation from the market cycles as well. So, and then it just keeps going up, guys. As you can tell, if you go past that, you can get all the way up to 22 years. If you decide you put a 22-year stake in and you decide after year 6 that you want to scrape, or say after year 10, the contract will allow you to scrape all 215% at year 10 that you've accumulated
with no penalty.
With no penalty, which is pretty neat. And it will start you back in terms of your multiplier back at 5%, and it'll calculate that out for the rest of the 10 years. But it doesn't restart your stake time. It just restarts your rewards counter, your interest counter. So it's simple. It's interesting. It's fun. It's powerful. The gas fees when you mint your rewards, they're going to be markedly lower than what some people are used to already. So there's just a lot of advantages with this contract.
Yep. And so, the whole purpose of, creating an endowment is to create sustainability in the contract for those who are willing to wait. And that tokenomic, right? What is the driver? And we've learned this from Richard Hart. What drives price in an automated market maker but buying and holding? And so the psychology of the tokenomics in the smart contract is that you would want to incentivize people to hold. Well, how do you reward people for holding? Well, this is the way in which you do it. And we're very familiar with it in this community. But trustless yield, folks, hasn't had its day in the sun yet. I mean, this system that we're under with this dollar-dominated system, as things go digital, people are going to have a choice. And so, Brandon, I want to kind of talk on that kind of, macroeconomic perspective. What do you think if we have this debt crisis and sovereign debt crisis in the world, and we see what's happening, with the growth of adoption in crypto, we see the advent of CBDCs and a lot of reluctance to go in that direction. How important is trustless yield to even institutions and individuals in the future when money is completely digital?
Yeah. This is a loaded question, man. And there's a lot of different theories out there that are circulating. Why does the SEC hate DeFi, but why are they embracing CBDCs? Why are they greenlighting PayPal stablecoins? Why are they greenlighting other whitelist stablecoins? Things like that. I think the answer here is DeFi represents something that they don't have control over. Whereas because a CBDC is actually the backing is in government debt, essentially, the backing is in that, then they have much more control over a market of CBDCs rather than a market of pure trustless DeFi. So what does that actually mean? That means that if the bubble of all bubbles ends up popping, which the bubble of all bubbles is when the federal government's debt explodes and major corporations' debt explodes. Right now, it's somewhat under control. But when that bubble happens, what are people going to do to risk off? You're gonna look at things like trustless DeFi to get into, to try to risk off and get away from that catastrophe that's brewing. What are other people going to do? They're going to buy precious metals. They're going to buy things like gold to try to hedge off of this. What are other people going to do? Some people are suggesting Bitcoin. I tend to think that Bitcoin is so closely tied from a liquidity standpoint to Wall Street that I don't really think getting into Bitcoin is going to be as safe as getting into maybe other things. So, here's the thing. I think that moving forward in the future, people are going to use cryptocurrency, smart contracts, trustless yield to try to hide away and try to lock in a vault their money. So at the very least, it remains the same value over certain time spans, maybe better value or the same value. That's all that people want, especially when this whole world is going to heck right now financially.
Yep, totally.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm going to invest in anything in the future, I want to invest in people, because I know that the core of all value and all wealth is based on the labor of human beings. And folks, you can't convince me otherwise. There's nothing of value that is not based on human labor. That may be intellectual labor, that may be physical labor, but at the end of the day, all money is a proxy for it. And so to give people and to empower people with their own resources and not under government control is it's really the revolution of the blockchain, and it's why it was invented. And I'm just going to appeal to so many. Our desire is that people in their communities would have branded versions of their own resourcing that they can own, that they can have identity in, they can build community around. And we've seen that in Hex, we're seeing that in the Pulse Chain, we've seen that in Texan, we're seeing that in Ophir. We are going to continue to have conversations with folks across the world to help people understand the power of DeFi for one, but two, we're going to continue to advocate for the Pulse Chain to be a place where it is not compromised by centralized players. What are your thoughts as kind of we wrap this thing up, Brandon, about how important it is to protect DeFi and why the Pulse Chain is so important to that? You're on mute.
I would say that it's important for everybody who wants to play a part in supporting Pulse Chain, because as time goes on, you run out of ways to push back against this thing that keeps on growing.
Yep.
Growing and growing and growing, metastasizing, getting bigger, gobbling up resources. And that's the federal Leviathan. That's whatever you want to call it, globalism. It's in your face right now. It's up front. They want to control things to keep the status quo, and they're simultaneously killing themselves. And you just don't want to be going down with that ship with them. So to answer that question, Pulse Chain represents a way in which we can push back. Pulse Chain represents a way in which we can create our own microeconomy. And like you've always said, Matt, through the determination and the decision made by many, many people, you can take your units of labor and you can pretty much vote of solidarity with Pulse Chain. And, if you have enough people do that, and enough people that believe that this is a way to thwart what's coming, or at least preserve your capital in some way, then I would certainly think that that's something worth fighting for, Matt. What do you think?
Yeah, there's no question. I think about the great your friend Somi talking about Metcalfe's law. When you're betting on a community of people, folks, we have Ethereum 2.0. We have a fork of that is running. It's properly decentralized, and there's only about 150,000 people in it. Folks, do you realize against 8 billion people on the planet, how small of a community that is and how much value is already there? If you look at the future growth of the adoption, just general adoption of crypto, that's going to be growing. We're coming into another bull market that I think will likely kick off in April with the halvening of Bitcoin. We're going to see this isn't going to be just some incremental growth. There's going to be a point in which this current system of extraction is going to implode on itself. And right now, what seems like an alternative will become mandatory, meaning you will have no place to go. And to think that we've been slugging it out, dealing with the FUD and all of this stuff this whole time, I want to challenge you folks. There's no better decision, in my opinion, than aligning yourself with your values when it comes to your money. And so when I look out at what Richard Hart's built, and I see the fact that his actions are one of advocacy for freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of privacy, freedom of transaction, and we have this ecosystem, we have to keep building, because this will not gain adoption without new projects like Ophir, like Texan, like all of the things that are being built, whether you like, meme coins or not. We have to continue to build. And in my opinion, we are doubling down on the Pulse Chain. And so, in my opinion, if we don't do it now, we don't build the infrastructure, there will be no place to go in the future.
No place to go that certainly embodies what we feel and how we feel about the world, Matt. There is no other place that I've seen, and I look at this stuff every single day for hours and hours.
Yep.
This is a very special place, and I hope people see that.
Yep. Folks, check out ophircrypto.com live and liquid. You'll see that on PulseX and on PHUX. I don't pronounce that, by the way, just so you know. But
P-Hux.
yeah,
P-Hux.
P-Hux. There we go, P-Hux. But you can check it out. I encourage you to get into the Telegram for Ophir Crypto, and that's at t.me/Ophir Crypto. And follow him on Twitter. Follow this story, because one of the things that's going to be coming in the future is that GemEffect, the nonprofit organization where all of the donation money went to, they're going to be giving not only resources of cash, but also endowments of staked Ophir. But I'm looking forward to a time when the pastors at these churches are recommending families that individual people within the crypto world could bless, meaning you could actually buy a stake for a family in the Philippines. Super excited about that future. And then, of course, all of the additional communities that we intend to tokenize. Do you want to give people a little teaser on Freedom Swap and in the Unifier token as well?
Yeah. So if you're not familiar, Freedom Swap has been identified as the way that we're going to connect these communities together. So we're going to create a decentralized exchange that is part of our ecosystem, that represents what we find important in our values, because this is permissionless, and we can do that because it is permissionless. We are going to do that. We're going to connect the Texan community. We're going to connect the Ophir community. And then we're also going to connect any other community who wants to be a part of this thing that we have going on moving forward into the future. Part of that is also going to be the Unifier token. And, we're not going to give away too much with that, but I tell you that it's going to incentivize folks to come check out what we have going on. And also it's going to, I think, benefit probably Ophir and Texan as well.
Yep. And there's a lot of incentive that's going to be built into the Unifier token, but that's the whole point, to unify these communities together and, give people additional value. Brandon, thanks for all that you do. Thanks for everything in this process and handling all of the fudsters out there. You definitely take the pressure off me, and I appreciate it tremendously. Thanks for all you do, folks. And thanks for everybody that's in the chat. A lot of folks that are helpful in Telegram, and so many people just supporting our channels and everything. This has been an amazing ride. But folks, if we can be this encouraged and upbeat and positive in such a difficult time, it says a lot about this community. And so do not let your hearts be troubled, right? We're doing the right thing based on wisdom and discernment, and we're treating people fairly, and we care about advocating. And this is something that I identified in Richard Hart in the beginning. And so, folks, we got to stick together. And you know what? There's no better time to be optimistic than when you're at the bottom. And so let's hold the line. Thanks, Brandon, for being on this. And folks, do not mess with Ophir. Take care, everybody. We'll catch you next time.